Hi, welcome to Making Movies the Canadian Way. My name is Thom Ernst. Now, normally I do a little intro and talk a bit about what we're going to do, and I think this particular episode is very special. We have a guest here today that I think I've been waiting to talk to since I have to say since I was about 10 years old. There's not much age difference between us, but he started acting very young. This man has over 157 credits on IMDb. He has worked with David Cronenberg. He has worked with Philip Kaufman. He has worked with the late Bob Clark. He has been in a lot of classic Canadian cinema. You'll recognize his name immediately. You'll recognize his face. Let me introduce to you Mr. Art Hindle. You know, I said, like over 150 credits on IMDb. I mean, that's just acting credits. I mean, there's other things you did as well. 5 decades in the business, in the Canadian film industry.
Yeah, it's coming up to 50 years
Right.
next year.
Well, you began, if I'm correct on this, 1971, or was it? Yeah, it was 1971. Was your
68.
first film. Oh, I'm okay.
I
missed
started
a few.
in 68, did some commercials and industrial films and, whatever we did in those days to survive. We all were doing them. I remember sitting in a hallway with no chairs. We were all waiting to go in to audition for an industrial film or a commercial, a beer commercial, car commercial, whatever it was, and I could look down this way and I'd see John Candy and Andrea Martin and Dan Aykroyd and Eugene Levy, so on and so forth, those people, and we were just all trying to get by and survive, and there was not much work in those days.
But yet you stayed in Canada. Like, I mean, you did American work.
I tried to stay in Canada. I was in a workshop, a theatrical work, not a theatrical workshop, but an acting workshop that was an arm of the Actors Studio, and most of the actors that came from going down the road were in that workshop. It was an acting teacher named Eli Rill, and I was lucky to get to be involved with him, and it really changed my life. And my friends did Going Down the Road. It won Best Picture at the Canadian Film Awards in those days. And those are the kind of films I wanted to do. Creative films. I wanted to do meaningful films. That's actually why I got into acting. And I just happened to do other kinds of things. I never really got to do meaningful films. I got to do things like the hockey movie Face Off, or the Canadian horror classic Black Christmas, or the biker film, The Proud Rider. I just kept diverging down other roads.
You know, it's funny you would say, though, that you didn't do important films, because maybe certainly if you drop Black Christmas or Proud Rider, and you go, well, they aren't art house films, but they are important in a different, I think, respect.
Oh, I agree. No, I'm very cognizant of the fact that in some ways, if those films hadn't been done, other important films might not have been done. Johnny Bassett raised the money for Face Off, and it became Canada's first $1 million budgeted movie, and it succeeded on many levels. So the fact that it got done encourages other people. Just like, in fact, I read something online the other day about a guy who is encouraged to be a filmmaker now because of Going Down the Road.
Yeah.
So these films echo. They have a life, and they have an impetus and a momentum that helps other filmmakers down the road. So I'm very cognizant of that. So I have no regrets. The Proud Rider, I got $175 a week. It caused me to get suspended by my union, ACTRA, because I didn't know ACTRA covered movies.
Oh.
Because the acronym in those days was the Association of Canadian Television and Radio Artists. I didn't see any movie in there, so I just did this movie for $175 a week in Oshawa. In fact, an ACTRA guy came out, talked to the Satan's Choice, talked to the producers. I saw him, I thought he was a producer. He didn't talk to me, he talked to everybody but me. And then later, they said, hey, you did this non-union film, and you're suspended for 3 months. You know?
Well, it's interesting because you're very involved in the union today.
Yeah, it's funny. It's ironic, you know. And I do tell members. They say, well, you know, I don't know, you know, I have to non-union. What do you know? What's the upside? What's the downside? I say, well, I'll tell you something. I got suspended, and I bit the bullet, you know. So I know all about being suspended. I know all about what ACTRA can do for you, and
Right.
I know. I'll tell you one thing, if not for the union, you wouldn't be getting paid what you're getting paid. No producer is going to, if he can get away with it, is going to pay an actor, let's say the going rate for an ACTRA member is $800 a day to work on a movie. You know, if he can get away with not paying you $800, he's not going to. So,
Absolutely.
So
And is that a sliding scale too? I mean, Art Hindle's going to get.
Yeah, we have cheaper rates for, you know, certain kinds of films. You can do a very low budget movie and you can pay your actors $120 for the day, but there are certain considerations for that. And actually, I am now working representing ACTRA as the Vice President External Affairs, and External Affairs involves everything outside of ACTRA, and that's part of my file. And so yeah, you can, you know, I try to get people to go union to work with ACTRA members. I tell young filmmakers two things. I say, if you want to make movies, first of all, you should have professional actors. Because if you have the best script, the best locations, and you're the best director, you have the best cinematographer, if it ain't on the screen, if the actors aren't sincere and are selling your script, nobody's going to hire you for a second film.
Right.
And only a pro can do that for you. And I say, by the way, and they say, yeah, but there's too many rules. I say, yeah. Number one rule for an ACTRA member is show up. You know, the non-union guy you hire, you might say, okay, my father-in-law's given me the bank on a Sunday, I can shoot in the bank. So then the non-union guy phones up and says, hey, my father-in-law is going to take me out to Glen Abbey to shoot on Sunday, play some golf, so we can do it next week, right?
There's a lot of money that being lost
Yeah,
there.
so there's, so rules are good for you. You know?
Yeah, and you know, one of the reasons I know you're really involved in ACTRA is not because I've read about it or anything, but the union parade, you're front and center.
Well, I have to be. You know, they drag me out there and put me on display. No,
Well,
you know,
it's true. You are one of the only recognizable face, I think, in that crowd at that time, or at least.
well, the maybe only recognizable face for you, but I
Okay.
recognize a lot of the others. You know, no, there's you know. Listen, I'm a member of SAG. I'm a member of ACTRA. I'm a member of Equity. If I wasn't a member of any of those things, even with my reputation, producers they'd be trying not to pay me. Certainly the bucks I get. So you know, it pays off. It pays off in so many ways. And, you know, I know there's rules and regulations, but I play golf. And there's rules and regulations in golf. And most of those rules and regulations in golf will work for you, so you can shoot better. You know, there's a certain rule. If your ball goes here and you have to lift it out, there's a certain rule for that. So these things all work out in the end, and they pay off for people. So that's what I'm trying to do, is make us a union. And we also go to bat. We're the ones that go to Queen's Park and make sure those tax credits are there. We go to to Parliament buildings and make sure that our industry, film industry, is supported by both the federal, provincial, and municipal governments. We're constantly doing something called lobbying to make sure they understand, because politicians don't always get how great this industry is. We are now, in Ontario alone, a $1.7 billion industry.
Just in Ontario.
In Ontario.
And most of that would be from Toronto.
Right, and that's a lot of jobs, and that's a lot of money going into the community. So that's what, and we're, ACTRA, our lobby members are helping that. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and if we get into politics, it's a little out of my realm, but I have to pose this question. If you're dealing with a Conservative government that we just left behind us, is it a little more tougher than dealing with
Yes.
Okay, so it's
It was uphill. It was an uphill battle. They don't really get it, you know, but we keep pounding away at them. You know, it's like, you know, enough water drips on rock, eventually the rock will give away. So that's how we look at it. We don't give up. We just keep dripping away.
Well, you started at a time in the 70s, which I think was really changing in the late 60s, but was really changing the face of cinema, particularly in America. And I think when I was a young man, watching a Canadian film was a unique experience in that going down the road had a very distinct sensibility that was not American. And then there was a long stride, it seemed to me, that Canada was trying to reproduce the American product instead of their own voice.
That's right.
So how would you deal with that? Because, you know, Black Christmas, and I'm a huge Bob Clark fan. That man has made, and if you don't know who Bob Clark is in the audience, we're going to have a discussion later, because this man is one of the greats in Canadian cinema, I think.
That's right, yes, he is.
Died way too young, and did Black Christmas, not One Magic Christmas, Christmas
Story.
Yeah, and
Porky's.
Porky's, yes. He's changed the film industry too, but you were part of that. You mentioned John Candy, but there was Don Franks, the late Don Franks now. Nicholas Campbell, I think, might have been around back then.
Nick Campbell, yep.
Yeah. So there was really a growing community of film actors in Canada.
Yeah, you know, the thing that we were proud of back in the day, and when I went to the States, eventually moved to the States, it helped, was that we were tough. We all decided to be actors when there was no work or very little work, and so we accepted any work, and we did it well, and we were appreciative, and when you're an actor and somebody hires you and you walk on the set, and people, the director, the producers, whomever, the other actors, for instance, whomever, can understand that you're there and you appreciate the fact that you have a job and you work very hard at it, that goes a long way to them respecting you and helping you and being kind to you. So when I went to the States and I walked onto a movie set or a television set, they could see that I brought that attitude with me, and it made a big difference. You know, when I first went to LA, I'd see people. I'd be working on, say, a TV episode, and I'd see this famous face, this older actor, whatever, and I'd say, "Wow, you know, like, I know who you are. You're this and that," and like, "But I haven't seen you working for a while. Why haven't I seen you working for a while?" And they'd say, "Well, they don't pay my rate." So he would have a certain rate for working, and if they didn't meet it, he would just stay not working and collect unemployment insurance, which American actors could do.
Oh.
Canadian actors didn't have that ability to contribute to unemployment insurance, so when they weren't working, they couldn't collect. So they had to just keep working, doing whether it was an industrial film, a commercial, whatever it was. You know, you weren't career building, you were just desperately trying to get the next job, you know?
How does a Navy father feel about their son going into such a precarious business?
He thought I was crazy because I was a stockbroker and I was making a good living. I was supporting, I had 3 kids, when I decided to be an actor, and my whole family thought I was crazy, including my wife. She thought I was crazy too.
I would actually say, especially your wife. If I was to suddenly tell my wife, well, of course I'm not as young as you were when you started, but if I was to tell my wife that, hey, honey, I think I'll get into acting, I would find myself single very quickly, I think.
Well, I understood all that, but I'm one who believes, find out, follow your dreams. If you want to do something, follow your dream. Find out, because you don't want to wake up 20 years from now and think, gee, I wish I'd tried that.
Yeah.
So I knew I was being a stockbroker. I went to a play one night and it moved me. I cried, and I went home thinking, that's what I want to do. That's the kind of impact I want to have in my life. I want to impact that way. I want to tell giant truths if I can. And a stockbroker is essentially a liar. It's just like he's telling me, hey, this stock is going to be great. Buy 20,000 shares, you'll love it. In fact, I tell people, they say, well, what's the difference between being a stockbroker and being an actor? I said, well, both tell lies, but the actor's lines are much better written. So that's what I did. I just took a giant leap with both feet, and I went back to that theater the next day, and I said, I want to be an actor.
Can we get an idea how old you are at this point?
I would be early 20s.
Okay.
Early 20s, very early 20s,
And 3 kids.
3 kids. And I went to that, and I said, I want to be an actor, and I'm willing to do anything. Give me some advice. And this person said, well, you're willing to do anything. I said, yeah, well, here, you show up here next week at this address, and there will be a man there, and he'll tell you what to do. And I said, that's it? He said, yeah. All right. So she said, but don't wear that suit. I had a stockbroker's suit on. So I went back and I told them, I said, I'm leaving, I'm going to be an actor. You take my clients, and I'll blah, 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 my list, and blah, 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 take care of that. And I'm going off. So I show up at this place, and there's a guy there, and I said, so you're Bill, and he says, oh, you're the guy who wants to be an actor. I said, yeah, and you're going to tell me what to do. He says, yeah, grab a shovel. And what it was this building that the theater group where they had bought this building that had been closed for 5 years, and they were going to build a theater in there. And Bill and I had to go in and shovel out all the stuff that had been in there for 5 years, like the animal stuff and all that kind of stuff, and build a soundstage, or not a soundstage, a theater in there and all that. So that's how I started.
Is that theater still standing?
It's Buddies in Bad Times.
No kidding.
Yeah,
and
it's changed around the way the stages and all that from there. But
sure, there's been an interior but wow.
Well, that was Strata Workshop Productions back in the day, a guy named George Luscombe, who's famous in theater.